A goofy intro for a goofy person. Hey there, Laurel Beard here. Take a look at this desk. It's a hot mess, but it's going to be a fun video today because we're going to be using water. Good old-fashioned H2O. Go to your sink, go to your toilet, go wherever you got to go. Get yourself some water. And let's incorporate some water techniques in our card making. It doesn't have to be perfect to create something someone's going to love, and it doesn't have to be hard. So let's get to it. All right, so I've got some watercolored cardstock here, and I'm going to start with Distress Oxides. Now, Distress Oxides are formulated. They're like a hybrid pigment blend. They married each other, okay? So the look that you get when it dries is a little bit of a chalky look. And I am just blending on different colors, Distress Oxides. I do let the ink dry in between, and when I say let, I mean I use my heat tool, and I go ahead and fast forward that. I got no patience to literally watch ink dry. So as I dry that, it sets, so you're able to add more oxides on top of that. So you can layer the oxides, which is a benefit of the oxides. The fact that you can layer the ink on top of each other without them blending together and turning, colors that don't work well together into mud. So I'm going in with 3 different colors. It's fall outside. I'm looking outside my window. All the leaves are changing colors. It's currently pouring down rain, but I wanted to go in with some fall-y colors. Now, all the supplies I'm using, as always, are going to be linked below in the supply list for you. It's a visual supply list, so if you just click on that link that I'm putting down there and open it in a browser, it's going to take you to every single thing that I'm using in this video. So once I've got the ink down, I'm going to grab my Misty stamping tool. I do recommend a stamping positioner for this particular technique because I'm going to be, you'll see. You'll see. It's going to be a lot easier. So I love penny black stamps. They have such beautiful scenic stamps. So what I'm doing is taking the stamps, I am spraying it with good old-fashioned water, getting lots of water bubbles on there, as you can see here, and then I'm going to close the Misty door. If you don't know what the Misty stamping tool is, I will link a video right up here in the right-hand corner, and you can check that out. But this is a stamping tool that I use. And I'm going to close that door right there, and basically it's going to take the water and it's going to press it down onto that ink surface that we inked up with Distress Oxides. They are water reactive, so I'm able to basically remove the ink. And you'll see what I mean. I'm letting it sit for a while. I want the water to really seep into the paper. And as you can see, some of the ink has come up on the stamp, some of it's left on the paper. I'm just going to take a rag and kind of blot that away. And I almost have like a ghost print of the design of the stamp. Now, you're not getting all the details of the leaves and the trees and the fence. We're going to work on that in a little bit. But before I move on, I've got that ink that came off that card onto my stamp. So I'm going to take it down. I just put another piece of watercolor cardstock, and I'm going to press the stamp onto the watercolor cardstock, and it's going to transfer the ink that we just picked up. And it's, not perfect. You can't really make out really too much of what any of that is. So at this point, I'll go in and add some more ink directly to my stamp. And this is just like a twofer. So I'm getting a 2-for-1 here. So I've got the ink on the stamp. I'm going to mist it with some water, and then I'm going to press again, pressing down. And then when I lift it up, the card is stuck to the stamp. No big deal. I'll just peel it off, and then I've got this beautiful scene. See, it doesn't look like I just painted that. I didn't, but the recipient's not going to know that unless they watch this video. So anyway, it's all brown. I do want to add some green and some dimension to it. So because I'm using the Misty, because I haven't removed the stamp from the Misty door, I can just go in and add some ink. This is some Catherine Puller ink and the color Spruce, I believe. So I went ahead and inked it up, spraying it with water, and then I'll press down. Nice firm pressure. Of course, the card's going to get stuck again. No big deal. I'll just peel it up. And, I just love this. I've got the brown, the greens, I've got light browns, I've got the whole shebang just from stamping that and adding some water to the stamp. So now I have some leftover ink on that stamp because I didn't remove the cardstock at the bottom. Everything is perfectly aligned. So I'm going to go ahead and do some stamping here just to bring out the pattern. So basically what I did was remove the ink originally when I stamped it with water. And now I'm going back in and adding some of the detail. So I've got that matte layer on the bottom, that chalky matte layer from the Distress Oxides. Now I'm going to go in with a couple of colors of Catherine Puller ink sitting right on top of the Distress Oxides, and the two work really well together. So because I removed that ink at the beginning when we started working on this card, it really left a pretty ghost-like print. You can see the difference between the two of these cards. I mean, it's clear which one is which. So pretty cool, right? I'm going to leave these cards sentiment free and put them in, I need something like, it's like a magic mug, but for backgrounds, like a magic background binder. Ew, I don't know. If you don't know what my magic mug is, here's a look at it in action, but I'll also link to a video up in the top hand corner for you to check out later after you watch this video. Let's move on to technique number 2 with water. So I'm going to go in with some gesso, and the benefit of gesso is you can use it with any cardstock. So I'm going to be using Faber-Castell gelatos. If you don't have these, just hang tight. I'm going to show you how you can do it with your regular ink pads too. But anytime I use gelatos, I always prep my surface with gesso because it makes the surface very blendable and smooth. But also I can use this with any cardstock I want. So I don't have to always pull out my watercolor cardstock because anytime I prep it with gesso, I can prep cheap Michael's cardstock with gesso and I'll get the same effect. So I do like that. But again, anytime I use the gelatos, I'm grabbing the gesso. I got this big tub. It's going to last well beyond my years, and I'm ready to go. So I went ahead and just painted it on. It dries very quickly, or you can heat set it very quickly as well, but it just takes a couple minutes to dry naturally. And then I'm going in with a couple different colored gelatos, and I'm just scribbling along the top. I just chose some, I don't know, fallish colors, whatever spoke to me from my big, huge tub of gelatos. By the way, I've had those for like 10, 15 years. I'm not kidding you. Nothing, nothing goes wrong with them. They don't get mildewy, nothing. I've not had any issues with these gelatos, and they last so long. So now that I've got the color blended at the top, I'm just going to add, move it around a little bit with my fingers, and then I'm going to go in with the water. It's not toilet water, by the way. I was totally kidding. But if that's all the water you got, use what you got to do. But this is just water from my kitchen sink. And then I'm just spritzing it right at the top, kind of angling my cardstock down. And then we're going to get this drip look. All right. Love it. Love it, love it. Now, again, if you don't have gelatos and you don't have gesso, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you in just a second another way to do it. But I love my gelatos, so I wanted to get them out. I don't use them often enough, and I adore them. I have an entire playlist dedicated just to these gelatos. These are calorie-free, baby, not like the kind I got in Italy. Gained about 20 pounds. But anyway, I just love it. They blend perfectly when it's on a gessoed surface, and I just have a lot of fun. I decided to go in and add a little bit of this blood orange color as well, keeping in line with the fall, with the colors that I see outside my window. Are you guys inspired by what's around you? I just looked up and I saw red and orange and yellow and the brown tree trunks, and that's pretty much where these colors came from, just because I glanced out my window. Imagine that. It's always amazing to me how things dry, like that purple and stuff, all that got picked up. I didn't even notice it when I was spraying the water, but I love this. And those pumpkins and cup, that all came from my magic mug. So I just love it. But I promised you I would show you a way to do it without gesso and gelatos, because not everybody has that, but most of you guys have ink pads. So this is, again, watercolored cardstock, and I'm just going to take different colors of inks from Catherine Pooler, and I'm basically just swinking them on to the top, just little colors that I think would look well together. And if you don't know what swinking is, it's a little word I made up on accident when I was talking about ink swiping and inking, and swinking was born. And I have a whole video dedicated up here in the right-hand corner to loads of swinking techniques, and I actually collaborated with my friend Ardeth. So you can probably get 20 to 25 swinking techniques by watching both of our videos. Again, it's linked right up there in the right-hand corner. So I'm just spraying water, holding my card vertically, and then I'll take a paintbrush and kind of blend out some of those harsh lines at the top that came from the ink pad. And then once it dries, you ready? Are you ready to see? Here it is. I just stamped some trees along the bottom, again, leaving it sentiment free, and it's going in my magic background binder. I need a better word. Help me out. Give me some better words. It's not flowing like my magic mug is, but that's basically what it is. I'll have all the backgrounds ready to go. Magic. All right, anyway, enough of that. Moving on. Let's do some ink blending, and I'm going to show you how you can add water droplets to your card. So this is the third water technique I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you 5 total, by the way. No, I think I'm going to show you 6. But before I do, this video is sponsored by Skillshare. I love them. They are my jam. I actually just watched a video all about how to dry my leaves, like leaf pressing. So I went out and did this whole thing, and I've got a whole video coming later, but I went leaf collecting and whatever, and here I am pressing them, and it's all because I looked up on Skillshare how to press leaves, because you would think I would know how to do that, but no, I did not. Skillshare is less than $10 a month, but I do have a free coupon for you down below. First 1,000 people to click on that will get premium Skillshare, 3-month of premium Skillshare for free. So be sure to click on that link below, and thanks so much to Skillshare for sponsoring. Back to ink blending. And I'll speed this part up because I'm doing some ink blending. Use any kind of blending tools you have. I have brushes off of Amazon, makeup brushes. I've used the scrapbook.com dome blenders. I've used a makeup wedge from the dollar store. There's lots of different applicators you can use for blending. At some point, I know at this point when I was blending, my arm started to hurt. But it's the price you pay for the blending. You know what I'm saying? So here I am swinking on some dark colors. I'm going to grab a brown here and just swink on a little bit of brown. Again, the exact colors I'm using, everything's going to be in that supply list for you. Just adding little, I don't know, shadows, maybe like rays of brown. I don't know. I just thought it looked pretty. Let's get to the watercolor technique. Flicking on water. Now you can flick it on with your fingers, you can flick it on with a paintbrush like I'm doing here. I'm literally dipping my paintbrush into water and flicking it on here. Trying to hold my camera and flick at the same time. Ooh, that was hard, and it made me sick looking at the footage. That's why you don't see that. But see how the water sits on top of the paper like that? It's cool to watch. But then take a clean cloth and dab it away. It's almost like you just bleached your card. Depends on the ink that you use, the quality of your ink, and if they're water reactive, if you're going to get this look. This is Catherine Puller ink. I am working on watercolor cardstock. So if you're going to use a lot of water, definitely grab your watercolor cardstock. And then you're left with this really cool background. And look at those cute little images to finish off that card. Now let's do technique number 4, which is, what am I calling it? I'm going to call it acrylic block water stamping. Sure, let's go with it. Let's make some moons, all right? So I've got my acrylic block there, and I'm just going to slap on some ink. That is Sauna ink from Catherine Puller, right onto my round acrylic block. I want to go in with orange, but I don't want to mess up my ink pad, so I'm just going to grab it with a paintbrush there and just add a little bit of orange there to the acrylic block. Then ink it up with water. Not ink it up, spray it with water, and then put my acrylic block down onto the cardstock, watercolored cardstock, of course, and then let it sit there just for a minute or two so the water has time to seep into the cardstock, and boom, I have a moon. I'm going to do a second print with what's left over on that acrylic block right there. And obviously I needed a little bit more ink, but I'm not going to add any more ink. I'm going to add more water. So I'm going to spray the block with water, and I'm going to jiggy, wiggy that block around just to kind of mush that water all around. And then boom, I've got me a second moon. Then I am going to make a third moon, so I'm going to add a bunch of this color. This is Juniper Mist from Catherine Puller. I'm going to ink up, that is some rough cardstock. In hindsight, I wish I had grabbed some smooth cardstock, but whatever. Moving on, I went ahead and added a lot of ink to that background. Now I am going in with my acrylic block, just adding water, nothing else but water, and then I'm going to press it right there onto the cardstock. Again, let it sit there for a few seconds so the water has time to absorb into the paper, and then I'll lift it up. Eventually, lift it up, Laurel. All right, and it's going to start slowly peeling away some of that ink, layer by layer. So I'm going to do this a whole bunch of times. All right, so I'm satisfied with how it looks. I like how it kind of looks like almost bleached that area. So now I'm going to take some white pigment ink and add it to my circle block, because the moon always has like, looks marbled, right? Looks like it's got like veins and stuff running all through. Man in the moon. I really thought there was a man in the moon when I was growing up. Did y'all? Probably not. Forget I said that. All right, so I added some water to my acrylic block that has the white ink on it. I put it down there, and now I'm actually using my rag to kind of build that like marbled look to make this moon look like a moon. And it does to me. So I just white heat embossed a tree right smack over the top. Ooh, pretty. Now this is a piece of cardstock that I applied direct to paper with some red ink, and then I'm going to do a fun peppermint background, if you will. So I'm going to take that peppermint cling background stamp, spray it with water, place my cardstock right over the top of it, watercolor cardstock, of course, press it right into that background stamp, that cling background stamp. And then when you peel up your paper, you can see that little candy cane striped background. It's very subtle, but I love it. And a simple heat embossed Christmas sentiment right over the top of this finished off that card. So you guys have always been asking to see me watercolor on a video. So I'm going to do it here. And this is technique number 5. You can use your water to water down your paint. So you can use the same color, but just the more water you add to it, the less intense the color will be. So it'll look like you use a whole bunch of different shades of the same color, but it's really the same ink color, just watered down more. So I'm just totally freehanding this imaginary flower. It's probably not a real flower by any means, but it's imaginary. And then I'll keep going on in and adding water and watering down my paint more and more. And then I'll just keep adding to the flower petals. I'm using what's called a mop brush, I guess because it holds a lot of water, like a mop. That's probably why it's called a mop brush. But anyway, I'm just going in. So you can see the more water I add, the more watered down I add to the paint, or to the ink. I'm actually just using ink as paint. The lighter the color gets. So here is the ink, or the ink smushed onto the block. I'm using a block as my palette. You don't need to go out and buy a whole bunch of expensive palettes unless you want to. And then I'll just go in and start hand painting my leaves. So the more intense the color is because I haven't added a lot of water to it. Ooh, I have another technique. I just remembered. There are 2 techniques, water techniques. Actually, I saved the best for last. This is probably my favorite project of all. So if you hung with me, congratulations. This is like my favorite. But anyway, moving on. I shouldn't play favorites, but I am. So yes, so if you want a more intense color, don't add as much water. If you want less intense, then add water. That goes with whatever medium, whether it's watercolor, paint, color bursts, it all works the same way. Going in and adding a little bit of a center to the flower, and then we're going to go into a really cool technique with water, and that's heat embossing. Did you know you could heat emboss with water? Because you can. I would encourage you to do big water droplets. So I'm just basically, and this is dirty water, and I use dirty water on purpose because my hands are dirty. So you could see where the water actually is falling, but in hindsight, use clean water. And I'm just flicking on the water there with my fingers. And then I'm going to go in and sprinkle on some embossing powder. Any embossing powder will work. No special formulated to work with water embossing powder. It's going to work with any embossing powder you have. Brush off any, maybe I didn't want a big clump of embossing powder down there. Just brush it away. The water's going to dry and you'll never know it was there. But anyway, then go ahead and start heat embossing. Now, it's going to take longer. You're not using Versamark or an embossing pad that is made for embossing, so it's going to take longer. And if you have big chunks of embossing powder, you're going to want to heat from underneath so you don't blow the powder right off, because this is water. It's not sticky. Whereas the embossing pad is sticky because it's made for the embossing powder to stick to it. But listen, if you got water, you can heat emboss. So once that's nice and heat embossed, I was so stinking stoked with this card. Check it. All that embossing powder stuck to the water and just melted together. It doesn't come off on your fingers or anything like that. So if you don't have an embossing pad or anything, try water. Right? So I have a video that I did in the past that is all about stamping with water. So I'm going to link to it right here. Be sure to run over, check it out, and I will be back next week for my next video. And as my daughter always says, be amazingly amazing. See you next week.